Welcome and happy Easter to each of you. Yes, so beautiful to be here. And I must admit, the last couple weeks has been extremely hard for me. My little friend, Doodles, who's been with me for 14 years, he passed on Friday afternoon. And it's hard, it's hard when you love someone, so deeply and you have someone so close to your heart. It's hard to be human in this world. It's hard because we love so deeply. We love so deeply. And many, many times for me throughout the spiritual path, I've went and listened to teachings by monks or nuns, and they always give this really terrible teaching. I can see like they come in and they look, kind of solemn and disconnected from life, some of them. And they talk about humans being, just this bag of meat and blood and guts and pus and urine and excrement. And I can always remember just looking at these monks and being like, wow, that is a terrible view of reality, a terrible view. And then occasionally, like one out of maybe 1 in 10 or one in maybe it's more like 1 in 30, you meet a monk or a nun whose heart is fully open and they see they're connected to the beauty of life, the absolute beauty of life. I'm going to show you all my just a picture of my friend here. I think I already showed him, but I can't remember. But my daughter got me this. It's a picture of Doodles. And my God, it just breaks my heart just seeing him because he is such a sweet soul, just such a loving fella. And I loved him so deeply. I love him so deeply. And for me, when I was young on the path, I made this choice that I wasn't going to look out at the world and say, this world is a mistake and I'm not allowed to be attached to anything. I think it takes far more courage to open your heart, to become deeply attached, to love with an open heart, to love fully. And of course, if you're going to follow this path that I'm sharing, we have to be willing to grieve deeply too, because this world will break our heart. I mean, it's always breaking our heart. And my poor little girl, she was crying and crying. I was crying and crying. My wife was crying and crying. And Doodles, he got this really aggressive form of cancer. And I just wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting him to go so quickly. And that's the thing with being human is we look out at the world and we think everything is going to be with us forever. And we become attached. And again, I'm not even going to say, like, don't be attached to the people in our lives, to the beings in our lives. Love deeply, attach deeply. Like, what else are we going to do? Are we going to act like we don't love? Like that doesn't even make sense to me. Now it makes sense not to be attached to our political beliefs and our opinions and that type of thing. The random thoughts that go through our mind, or us needing to be right. And it's like, yeah, come on, like, we don't need to be attached to that type of thing. But to those close to you, like the people who don't attach tend to be psychopaths, or sociopaths. And so it's good to smile and to open your heart and say, I do love. And I love this being greatly. Like, whoever it is, whatever it is, love greatly. Love fully. But then, there'll come this reckoning one day where our loved ones leave us. And that's just one of the things that happens here on planet Earth. It's just one of the things that happens. And so here I was, I was holding Doodles, and he made his way to heaven. And I even heard him. He even like came to me and let me know, like, I'm in heaven. He went really quick. He was just like half a second, and he was in heaven. His journey was very quick, very quick. And I sat and I held him for hours and hours and hours. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And cried some more and cried some more. And my wife and I, we dug a big hole. And even though he's a little guy, but we dug a big hole because his favorite thing to eat was apples. And so we're going to plant an apple tree. And we're going to bury him and then plant a tree with him. And I got down in the hole. It's like many hours after he died, and I was holding him. I just couldn't put him in the ground. I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. So I was like halfway in the ground. So I was like in the earth up to my waist and holding him, like up on I don't know how you say it, like up on the land. And I was hunched over, just hugging him and grieving and crying and crying and crying and laying there again for hours. And it was quite a sight just to see me grieving so much. And finally I was just like, I just can't do this. I can't do it. And so I got up, and then I sat in the chair and just held him. And it just felt like I was holding my little baby, but a baby who had passed. And I held him some more and some more and some more. Finally, it was starting to get really cold. But I couldn't go inside. It was just hard to go inside. And I said, okay, I'm going to carry him inside. And so I made him a little bed inside. And I got him some of these flowers. And then I slept with him the whole night, like right next to him. And of course, I didn't really sleep much, and I lit a bunch of candles for him. And then finally the next morning, it's like, okay, now we have to bury you, bud. And then so we went out and we buried him. But again, it took a couple hours to bury him, to plant the tree. And we were all grieving again and again and again. And see, this is what it means to love deeply. This is what it means to have an open heart. It means that we are going to feel deeply. We're going to love deeply. We're going to experience deeply. Now, of course, this is satsang, so the question always returns to, well, what does it mean to be awake? And how is that different than being asleep? So when we're awake, we feel and we experience without filter. And we feel and experience without fighting the moment, without fighting it, without resisting it. And again, like if we want to be a good monk, we can say, okay, like to be awake is, like according to many monks, is to not engage with reality. Actually, they'd probably say not engage with life. But to me, like life is love. Life is engagement. Life is connection. Life is feeling. And many of us, we try to follow that old spiritual path where we say, I'm going to try to get through this world without feeling, without having any emotion, without having any reaction. And you know, like that last one, I'll agree with it. Like, can we get through life without having any reaction? Probably not. Can we have less of a reaction when things don't go our way? Sure. But I can remember when I went and saw one of my teachers, and someone asked him, like, say if the Zen master, say if his wife or their husband dies, like what's going to be their reaction? And my teacher said, well, they will grieve profusely. And when I heard that, it made me so happy. So happy. Because it was permission to be human. It was permission to have a heart. It was permission to feel. Whereas a lot of the monastic spirituality that I studied basically told you you weren't allowed to be human. You weren't allowed to feel. It's like, if I just think of Doodles, it brings so much sadness and so much joy. So much sadness and so much joy. And I can remember when I was young, I tried so hard not to feel. And I failed miserably at this. Like most of us, when we try to get through life without feeling, what happens is we become super controlling. Super controlling. And if you see, like occasionally, I will see an old priest. An old priest who, I know a couple of them, who are afraid of life, afraid of being human. Or being human is a dirty thing. It's a wrong thing. The ego is a dirty thing. It's a bad thing. It's wrong. It's like, my God, we are given a body. We are given a heart. We're given an egoic nature. And so, of course, we're going to have lots of feelings, lots of attachment, and lots of growth. If we can look at the experience from humility, instead of looking at it as a problem. We look at it from humility. We say, of course, we love the ones who we're close with. Of course we do. And this love is completely irrational. Completely irrational. I mean, it's love, love for God's sake. We love what we love. Sometimes we love the things that hurt us the most. And the beautiful thing about our four-legged friends, normally they only hurt us one time. Normally they only hurt us one time. And that's not even their fault. It's not even their fault. It's none of our faults. But that's the thing. Like, if we come to planet Earth, we can try to rise above. We can attempt to transcend. But 99.9% of us will fail. Will fail. Now, the reason this day, Easter, is the holiest day, the Christian calendar. It's the holiest day because it represents something significant. Like, if we come to this world and we simply transcend, there is no resurrection if we're always transcending. In order for there to be a resurrection, we first have to incarnate and be here fully. We have to touch the earth, walk upon the earth. To incarnate fully means we walk here with an open heart. And we allow ourselves to love deeply and nakedly. By nakedly, I mean without walls, without holding back. Just allowing your heart to do what it naturally does, which is it loves, it connects. It wants nothing more than to be intimately at one. Intimately at one with whatever it is that's present. And of course, that's what Jesus did, is he loved greatly. He loved fully. He gave of himself. He gave so much that people could not understand it. He gave so much that somehow, the crowd, the mob made him wrong for giving so much, for loving so much. And the beauty in the resurrection was that he didn't get revenge. He didn't become jaded. He continued to love. He continued to walk in the direction of truth. He continued to give of himself, even while on a cross. And of course, today marks a day where he ascended to heaven. And all of us will ascend to heaven. All of us. This resurrection is not a unique thing for him. Sometimes churches try to keep this one thing only for the, for the master, whoever that master is. But the beauty in the resurrection is it's a reminder that love always prevails. The truth always prevails. It always prevails. And many of us, at some point on our spiritual journey, we find ourselves in the dark night. And in the dark night, we think the darkness is winning, it's winning, it's winning, it's winning. And often we lose faith in the dark night. We lose faith when we go through this very challenging spiritual experience. But the resurrection is here to remind us that even the darkest of nights, the longest, darkest nights, and for some of us, like those dark nights go on for like a decade. And so, like even those long, incredibly brutal dark nights, eventually, this too will end. This too will end. And so everything here on planet Earth, it has a beginning. Like I can remember when I was first given little doodles, somebody didn't want them. I don't know how they couldn't want them, but he was this sweet little puppy. And they put him in my hands and said, "Do you want him?" And it wasn't even a thought. It was God was handing this puppy over to me. And my oldest daughter, she came over and while Doodles was passing, and she said, "Dad, Doodles really softened you up." And I said, "My God, he certainly did." He certainly did. I used to be more of a monastic kind of guy before Doodles. And it's funny that, anyone can be our teacher. But I used to be a lot harder of a fella, because I had so many lifetimes as a monk. I had like a little bit of that hardness and not really wanting to be on planet Earth and not wanting to take on any extra responsibility. And many of us, we get this idea on the spiritual path that if we take on extra responsibility, that somehow it will get in the way between us and God, that this thing will slow us down. And, it's true that if you and I take on extra work and save up money so we can buy a red, shiny Ferrari, we spend our whole life polishing that thing. Yeah, like that might get in the way between us and God. But being in relationship, if we show up in relationship, and if our heart is remotely open, then that relationship is going to bring us closer to God. It's going to bring us closer to the truth. It's going to teach us about love. And of course, it's also going to teach us about loss. And the great invitation here is, can we love all the way through the end? Can we love all the way through the end? And for many of us, when we follow the dance of ego, we love, we get hurt, and we shut down. But for most of us spiritual beings, that way won't work. Ending with, I'm choosing to shut down. that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't sit right. It doesn't sit right. And that's the beauty of Jesus on the cross. Is he chose to continue to love. Even the people who were nailing him to the cross, he chose to continue to love. And see, this is the way of the awakened one, is to choose to continue to love. Through and throughout. No matter what happens, we choose to continue to love. Now, even after the person has left you, or they passed, or you passed, or they hurt you greatly, we choose to continue to love. Because we know ultimately that love is the way. That love is the way. And of course, with Jesus, he died, he was resurrected. And then there's the story of Paul, who was going out, rounding up Christians, persecuting them. And Jesus came to Paul. But Paul was going out killing Christians, rounding them up. And Jesus came to him and chose to love, chose to show him another way. And the story of Paul, if anyone's ever actually heard the story of Paul, it's quite an incredible story. It's a story of a lost soul, someone who was doing great violence to humanity. But then the story of that one choosing to open, allowing themselves to be transformed. And how beautiful is that? I love stories about human beings who are on the wrong path, who are quite a mess, who weren't the perfect Zen master. But through the power of love, through the power of truth, were able to allow their life to be transformed. And of course, Buddhism has many great stories, many great sages who are crooks. I think, who was it? I always get the Buddhist guys all confused with, I think it was the story of Milarepa, who was a murderer and heard the teachings of the Buddha. And then something woke up in his heart. And that's the beauty of any true teaching. It can come to us at any point in the path. And just like Doodles came to me, my heart was hardened. I was fresh out of a divorce and really struggling in life and really angry at the cards that were dealt to me. And God brought me this little dog, this little this four-legged friend. And me and Doodles, we even had a hard time in the beginning. We had a tough time with each other, and I didn't really know how to be with him. He was a one of these high maintenance dogs, and he had all kinds of issues, and he ended up in the dog pound a couple times because he had run away. He had a bad influence. There was another dog that he used to run off with, and he ended up at the dog pound a couple times. And but he had such a pure heart that his pure heart helped to awaken the purity in my heart. And me and Doodles, we had big plans together. We were going to drive off a cliff and explode in a ball of fire off one of the big cliffs on the road to Hana and on the island of Maui. That's how we were going to go out together, but it didn't work out for us. He went first. He went to heaven first. He went to heaven first. But I had was thinking that we were going to go out with a big drama and a big bang, but he chose to go to heaven first. And that's the thing with this life, is we never know. We never know when our time will come. Or those we love, we never know when their time will come. But what we do know is that our job is to open and to love greatly. Greatly. Even if our love breaks our heart, our job is to love fully, open-heartedly, without reservation. Because life isn't worth living if we don't love greatly and fully. We will always feel as if we are missing something. We will always feel as if we are lacking unless we love greatly. And when you love greatly, and especially when we're in a human body, we'll be hurt and we'll be annoyed and we'll be perturbed and we'll be irritated, because human beings, and of course animal beings, like, are imperfect. And they will love us imperfectly. We'll love them imperfectly. We'll get on each other's nerves. We'll drive each other crazy. We'll fail. They will fail. I can remember one day when I looked up at God, and it's like everyone was betraying me. Everything in my life was failing. I kept looking up at God saying, what is going on? This isn't fair. This isn't right. And God was saying, yes, life isn't fair. But yes, this is right. This is life on planet Earth. This is life on planet Earth. It's a big, hot mess. If you were at my house on Friday or Thursday, because I mean, this whole week I was crying so much. But if you were at my house on Friday, you would see a hot mess. If you came on Saturday morning or Friday afternoon, you see a man in a grave. It was like halfway in, halfway out, holding on to his dead body, holding on so deeply, crying, crying. I cried so much. There was guys, I had like salt burns on my face because I had so many tears. And finally on Saturday afternoon, I went in the bathroom, and I got some of my wife's like expensive seaweed facial wash or something. I was like washing my face and massaging my face, because I was so burned from so much salt, from so many tears, and then even more tears were coming out. As I was kind of massaging my face and my jaw, and it's silly. It's a silly, crazy, confusing, paradoxical thing being human. And sometimes, I have people that come to me and they say, why? And I love the Buddha's response to why. He said, these are the unanswerables. I like that. That's so eloquent. These are the unanswerables. There's just some things in life we will not get the answer to. But part of loving greatly, part of being awake, is accepting this mystery, accepting the fact that I don't know, I don't get to know. I don't know. Like, why is there death? I don't know. Why is there cancer? It's like my little friend. Why did he have to die and suffer with cancer? He has such a pure heart. Why? Why did he have to go so soon? I had it in my head. We had another 6 years together. Like, that's what I had. Or maybe 60 years together. I don't know. But I had in my head it was going to be a lot longer. But part of being awake, part of being open, is acknowledging that life and death, sickness, old age, cancer, viruses, difficulty are just a part of this world. They're just a part of this world. And most of us, we have this thing in our head that's telling us constantly, no, it should be different. It should be different. No, it shouldn't be this way. It should be another way. And life will tell us this is how it is. This is how it is. And again, we can try to pull off that cold, stoic monk. Say, this is the way of things, or some kind of bullshit. But if our heart is open, we love deeply. And we actually allow these things to break us further and further open. Further and further open. If we listen to our egoic nature, heartache closes us down, and then we begin to build a shell. We begin to put lots and lots of armor around that shell. And then if we go that route, and some of us do, like I tried that route, I walked around with all this armor. Armor's heavy and it gets rusty and it's burdensome to carry all that armor. And then finally, something comes along that is so sweet, that we so innocent, so pure that we can't stop. We can't help ourselves but to love it. And that's the very thing that breaks our armor. That's the very thing that breaks our heart open. breaks our heart open. And so this is a great question for each of us on the path. Are we going to walk around with lots and lots of armor? Are we going to try to control life and guard against and defend and fight with and resist and micromanage? Yeah, I love the micromanager. I'm going to try to micromanage this reality. Or are we going to look through the eyes of the heart and love and love and love more and more and more until we recognize that we are love itself and that there's no other way. No other way but to love. No other way but to accept. No other way but to allow. No other way but to give. No other way but to open, open, open. And to continue to open until there is no longer any walls. And so, happy Easter, everybody. So beautiful to be with each of you. See y'all next time.